In this video, I'm finishing the first of 4 sections of our mini Manticore Island in Jurassic World Evolution 2, the Redwood section. In this video, I'm building a habitat with Alamosaurus and a Margosaurus, as well as an enclosure for the Triceratops and Bumpy to bump up the number of herbivores in this park, because previous episodes were quite heavy on the carnivores. Now, this was quite a lot of work, filling in the gaps in the genome, so to speak, but I didn't want to split it into 2 episodes, so hence we are once more doing a speed build, and that starts with this guest section over here. In case you missed the previous 11 episodes, the way Mini Manticore Island works is we have our entrance plaza at the center of the park, and like all 4 different biomes of the island are connected to that central plaza through a Hyperloop station. So right here on screen you can see another Hyperloop station. So this, I know it's like, it's an electricity, it's a power plant, but I'm using it for transport. So this one connects to the central Hyperloop station at the entry plaza, and that's how people get into the Redwood section. And so they arrive in this plaza. So it's for the experience of our guests, it's quite an important plaza. It is their welcome into the Redwood section. So that's why I had to spend some time on making it look good, as I always do, just chucking in so many planters, so much stuff, but you know, we love that sort of stuff. Anyway, the first habitat that our guests will experience once they arrive in the Redwood section is the T-Rex habitat, which is to our left currently, but I did place a Sauropod skeleton there because the second habitat that the guests will be going through is the Sauropod habitat with the Alamosaurus. So what happens is people have to hop onto the tour to get to the rest of the Redwood section. Now, that wasn't initially the plan, but you gotta be flexible with the layout of your park when you don't plan things out ahead. And that is maybe not the smartest idea, but that is how I've approached this park. I've approached it in a very episodic manner, and a really segmented matter. I didn't plan ahead of time what the layout of the park was necessarily going to be, and I think to an extent that worked out really well. I'm actually really happy with how this entire section came together. I'm having some second thoughts about the fact that people have to take the tour. That wasn't initially the plan, but it's just how things came together with how I used the space. So basically, the Tarbosaurus habitat, the Tarbosaurus stadium that we built the week before last, that really just cut the Redwood section in half, which forces people to take the tour. But yeah, my approach to park building is very unplanned, and I wouldn't necessarily advise it, but hey, I have fun with the build, and isn't that the most important thing? It should be, at least. It should be. What I'm thinking about now is a question that I get very regularly from people is, how do you stay motivated during such a long and detailed park build? And my answer whenever I get this question is, if you get demotivated during a build and you just get sick of it, it's okay to stop. Yeah, it's not homework, it's not a job. I mean, for me it is, but for most of you watching, it isn't. Please just remember that you're playing a game and it's supposed to be fun. And if you've just depleted all of your creative energy on a park and you just can't move forward with it, don't force it. Maybe build something else for a little bit. Yeah, just take on another project to sort of invigorate you, and maybe you'll come back to the park build that has exhausted you, or maybe you don't, and both would be okay. Just a little advice with Evo. Look, I have to talk about something, as you know, past Evo does all of the actual hard work. I say hard work as if placing tables and chairs is hard work. It's not. Anyway, oh, what has my life become? At this point, Past Evo has finished work on the guest section, where our guests first arrive into the Redwood area, and now Past Evo is moving on to the Hatchery. Sorry, I'm making myself very uncomfortable referring to myself in the third past tense person. Anyway, we're moving on to this little staff section surrounding the hatchery. If you missed the episode for the Tarbosaurus Stadium, this hatchery is part of the Tarbosaurus Stadium. It's like part of the attraction, so to speak. So it's kind of a bloody attraction, but what happens is, you know, dinosaurs are released from the hatchery and lured into Tarbosaurus Stadium for ethically questionable entertainment. So that's why that hatchery is over there. And that is also how the Tarbosaurus build has, cut the entire Redwood section in half. That wasn't the initial plan. Something I'm doing in this area. Now, the problem I had is that guests weren't actually using this little plaza in front of the T-Rex habitat, which was a bit of an issue. Now, there was already an amenity there, but apparently that amenity was not doing it. It was not persuading people to actually come into this little separate section. So that's why I added an attraction, a viewing dome into the T-Rex habitat to actually lure the guest AI into this area so that we could spawn some guests here and we could see some actual activity. Otherwise, it would feel very odd that arguably one of the, you know, most popular attractions in the park, the classic T-Rex, has 0 people actually visiting the area. So that's like a little side tip. If you want to really create the illusion that guests are experiencing your park the way you want them to, sometimes you have to help out the guest AI a little bit by placing attractions in choice places. That's also something I did for yesterday's entrance build for the Worldwide Wildlife Park. You know, guests weren't using specific parts of the path, so I just put an attraction there to make sure that they would actually, you know, that the guests would flow over there. In the meantime, I've completely forgotten what else I was talking about. Something about Tarbosaurus being unethical. Anyway, we've moved on at this point to the sauropod habitat that the tour goes through. So you can see little Ford Explorers going back and forth. So this is where I will be housing the Amargasaurus and the Alamosaurus. I just felt like those were, you know, a fun combination to chuck into one exhibit. And I wanted to go for a big dinosaur because this habitat is overlooked. You saw it at the bottom there. It is overlooked by the central guest plaza where our guests first arrive into the park. So I wanted this to have dinosaurs that they could see when they're up on that elevated plaza. So a sauropod felt like the natural choice. I'd already used Brachiosaurus, so then sort of defaulted to Alamosaurus, thought Amargasaurus was a fun combination. Look, the level of depth that goes into these parks in terms of like thought process is like kiddie pool deep, okay? It meaning to say it's not deep. In many words, it is not deep. That's literally all that goes through picking the dinosaurs if you guys don't have a suggestion that I can sort of latch onto. And this is your weekly invitation to please keep the suggestions coming for the species. For this specific episode, the only species suggestion that I took into account specifically was for Bumpy to come into the park, which felt like a very fair request, so that's why Bumpy is being added in this episode. She's gonna live happily ever after with the Triceratops. But yeah, we still have 3 sections to go for this mini Manticore build, so please keep your suggestions coming. I do have some ideas already for the temperate section. The temperate section so far is only home to the high security hybrid area in like the tip of the island, as well as our chicken barn, which I'm really happy with how that one turned out. But taking inspiration from the chicken barn, I also want to put in the temperate section the Dinochirus, a duck, and the Therizinosaurus, a turkey, to sort of go with the whole farm idea. I thought that was pretty funny, and also a way to incorporate more herbivores, or in Dinochirus' case, an omnivore. And, you know, not exclusively use carnivores. But other than that, yeah, suggestions are, as always, hugely appreciated, because that really helps with, like, you know, the creative process And I really like that, you know, this build as well as Mini Malta, not Mini Malta, I keep saying that, Mini Nublar have been, you know, really cooperative. We're sharing ideas here. You guys throw a suggestion out, and that sort of gets the ball rolling for me for the builds. And hopefully you guys enjoy how it comes out. In the meantime, Past Evo, here I go again, referring to myself in the third person. Past Evo is still working on the Sauropod habitat. I wanted to keep it quite open, so I did chuck in, you know, rock formations with the trees around it as I usually do. It also has a little sneak peek into the Tarbosaurus habitat. So the vehicles drive by the fence. The fence for a moment, instead of being solid concrete, is wire fencing, so they can actually have a peek into the Tarbosaurus habitat. But mostly it's quite an open habitat, and that is again because this habitat is very much built for the experience of seeing it from that elevated entry plaza. So the front right there with the lake and everything, that's going to remain quite empty, with a lot of redwood trees in the other section, as it is, you know, the redwood section. So it was important to have a lot of redwoods. We have now cut through the fabric of space and time, and we're working on the next part of this episode, which is the habitat for the Triceratops and Bumpy, which goes in between the Tarbosaurus hidden adventure area, which is a full-blown area. Like, it's the maze, it's the stadium, it's the habitat. And then on the other end of the island, we had the Sauropod and Montosaurus walk-through enclosure, where both our dinosaurs and our guests can move between the redwood and the taiga section. And so in between those two builds, in between the walk-through habitat and the hidden adventures area, we had this kind of awkward, pretty small space left, and I decided to put Triceratops and Bumpy in there. As I said earlier in my ramblings in this video, the way I've approached this park build isn't... There's no plan. It's really episodic. We just build one thing in one episode, we build another thing in another episode, and then at a certain point, which is this episode, those two things just have to connect some way. And really, the shape and the size of the area that you are left with dictates what you can build. And in this case, there just wasn't that much left to do anything particularly spectacular. But I think that's okay. I think it's actually... even though it's not the ideal way of building a park, the ideal way of building a park, I would say, is envisioning the entire layout ahead of time, planning things out beautifully. But that's not necessarily realistic. It's quite challenging. It might not even necessarily be the most fun approach. So I think second best is how I've done it here, which is to build in segments. And you focus on certain areas of your builds. Like, you do a little brainstorm about certain habitats, like the Tarbosaurus hidden adventures area, and you take the amount of space that you need to completely flesh that out the way you envisioned it. And whatever space you are left with, you just accept that you're gonna use that as a little bit of filler. And that's what this is, which is also, you know, kind of why I didn't want to split this into 2 episodes, even though the building was long enough to warrant that. Because at the end of the day, admittedly, these habitats aren't that special, I guess is the word, but that's okay. Like, I don't think every inch of your park needs to be special. At the end of the day, there's just areas that function as a connection point from one place to another, and if you can stick more dinosaurs into those areas, that's obviously great, and that's what we did over here. But, you know, sometimes you're just left with a space that's not enough to come up with this genius, well thought out, creative, massive thing. You know, you just have to accept that space is limited, and you work with that. Basically, to make a long story even longer, what I'm saying is that you should definitely pour a lot of creativity into, you know, key points in your park, maybe for your favorite dinosaurs or something like that. And it's okay if the rest isn't like a genius, creative, reinventing the game kind of build. At least that's the way I've approached it for myself, right? I do challenge myself to be creative as often as I can with as many builds as I can, but sometimes it's okay to just build a normal habitat in between. So I don't know, maybe that's just the pass I'm giving myself. Maybe that's sleep deprivation talking, but at the end of the day, I do feel I'm kind of becoming almost like an advocate for it's a game, just enjoy the game. I'm not gonna beat myself up over not reinventing the wheel for every single habitat build in a park, because I can't. There's only so many wheels that you can invent at the end of the day. The point is that I had fun with this build, and I'm happy with how the Redwood section has come together. And I hope that you agree, and I hope that you're also excited, as I am, about the other 3 sections in the park that we still need to do a lot of work on. So the taiga, temperate, and desert area. Still a lot of work left to be done in this park. Let me know in a comment down below which section we should be working on next. Because, you know, I'm always, like, relying on you guys' suggestions. We can get the creative ball rolling. Now, don't worry, there's still plenty of creative builds coming to the channel that I'm super excited about. Not just within the Mini Manticore series, but also new building series coming up in 2024, as well as standalone projects, like, for example, the worldwide wildlife map that we recently finished, and that I'll be touring soon. And of course, we have our livestream Christmas build going on. So yeah, there's just a lot of stuff on the channel right now. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited for all of these projects, and yeah, I hope you are as well. One of the things that I'm really looking forward to, and I think that goes for many people, is that in 2024 we'll finally be doing Mini Sorna. A lot of people wanted me to do Mini Sorna right after Mini Nublar, but I just needed a break from the tropical biome, so that's why I interjected with Mini Manticore Island here. And you know, I'm having fun with the build, but I definitely feel that itch is already starting for Mini Sorna, so I'm really looking forward to that. Anyway, back to this build, because I've been rambling incessantly. Thank you for listening. Honestly, your patience is admirable. But back to this build, it is almost completed. I'm just adding some nature stuff around the guest section. What I try to avoid is, for example, this triangle here. I considered filling it in with path and making it a seating section. That is, of course, you know, as the artist formerly known as Crazy Path Lady, my first instinct to just fill it with more path, paved paradise, and put up a guest plaza. But I decided against that, and as you see here, I've made it into like this little garden, because honestly, it didn't need another big area with path and seating, because we already have that really close by. Now I could not resist putting some benches around this fountain, and like what has become my standard formation, just benches all around, and then either lights and or flower pots all the way around. But other than that, it really didn't need more guest seating or guest opportunities, because that's all part of the build that we did for the Sauropod walkthrough that's really close by. So that's why I use a lot of nature in this area. The red flags, by the way, are supposed to represent that it's an exit, not an entrance. So, you know, use your imagination. People aren't allowed to go there, because of course that is the exit points of the Tarbosaurus hidden adventure area. Now, at the very end here, it's time for the habitat, and honestly, it's a really simple habitat. Is it because I was feeling a little bit lazy at this point? Maybe. I won't deny it. I plead the fifth. But also, I just wanted to keep it quite open, so people would have, like, an unobstructed view from all sides, right? We have the viewing galleries behind us right now. We have the path to the right. We have the seating section at the top there. I didn't want to obstruct the view. And also I feel like for some animals, it just makes sense to have a more open and unobstructed habitat. So that's what I did for this one in particular. And after all of that rambling, the build for the Redwood section of Mini Manticore Island is finally completed. So at the end here, a little bit of an overview so you can see what we've made before we move on to whatever is going to be the next section. Again, please comment down below which section you want me to focus on next and which types of dinosaurs and exhibits you want to see for those builds. This might be the last video that you see from me before the holidays. So if you're unable to join me for the live streams this weekend, I am still streaming as normal on Saturday and Sunday. But if you do have plans with friends or family and you aren't able to stop by in the chat, then let me use this opportunity to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And I hope you have a wonderful time with friends or family or however you're gonna spend it. And I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me this year. And I hope that you've enjoyed it, and I hope that you've taken away some inspiration for your own builds and have become inspired and excited for Jurassic World Evolution 2. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.